Hey, welcome to Mooney Reads. My name is Beck, and today we're going to be talking about Banned Books Week. Now, I filmed a video on this where I went through the top 100 banned books. I really only went through kind of sort of the first 50 and then glanced over the rest. But I lost the audio because I tried to screen capture and have video going at the same time, and it didn't work this time, even though it worked last time I tried. So, I guess I'm going to be doing something a little bit different because it's not nearly as fun when I'm looking at it again. I wanted to talk about Banned Books Week, though, because it's really important to me. It was the first, social justice adjacent things that I was really aware of. In high school, I first learned about people banning books and thought it was really ridiculous that someone would ban a book. And then my freshman year of college, which was 2011-2012, I went out of my way to try to read a ton of banned books. I started a blog about it and only posted a couple of times, which is about par for the course. But I wanted to go through the list because I haven't really looked at it in a while. I haven't looked at the past decade. I'd only looked at the kind of 2000 to 2009 list. It was a lot of fun to go through. I had a good time, even though, all of the footage has no audio. So, love that for me. But one of the things that happened while I was reading the list is I noticed that one of the books, I hadn't heard a whole lot of people talking about it before, but I had it. I actually got it because one of my friends was clearing their library, or part of their library, and I got it for free. And that was Revolutionary Voices by Amy Sawney. And I've had this, and it's, on my unread shelf. It's not on a particular TBR, but I'm going to go out of my way to read it sooner, since it's on the banned books list. So I figured, since I would still like to talk about Banned Books Week, I'll do something a little bit different. The website has the book lists. The ALA, the American Library Association, has their most banned books list broken down in a few different ways. I'll put their website in the description so you can check it out if you want to, which I would recommend. I think checking out banned books is great because banning books is ridiculous, 99 times out of 100. So, the way that the website is laid out, they have just the top 10 in general, since 2001. They have where you can look by decade, which is what I was looking at, and you can also look by year. And this is various things that, parents, concerned community members can petition a library or a school to remove the book from the shelf. It also has it separated out by types of books. They have kids' books, young adult books, classics, books with diverse content, and then some infographics to look at. So I thought I would look at a couple of these lists, go through, talk about the ones that I know about, and maybe even pick a couple to go out of my way to read soon. So that's what I'm going to do. Since I clearly cannot screen capture and film at the same time, which is why I lost all of my audio for my last video, I'm just going to put kind of a picture of the website up on the screen. I'll also have each of them, I'll also have the ALA's website in my description, so you can look at whatever you want. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the frequently challenged books with diverse content specifically, because they have a number of these different lists laid out, but that is the one that I'm going to look at because while the classics list is fairly manageable in its length, going through more than one of the other lists would be a lot. Though it would be fun and I would want to do it, I just doubt that all of you would want to watch me go through all of them. There are a number of these that I don't recognize. The first book that I see on this list that I recognize, and it's in alphabetical order, is The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. Now, I am not going to recommend this book because he has been accused of sexual harassment, so that's not cool. I have read the book, though, and I read it for an adolescent lit class a while back, and I really liked it.
There were parts of it that I liked. It's been a while since I've read it. I could see the things that people would probably find objectionable, like alcohol use and death, but it's not like the alcohol use is glorified. It's talking about like the realities of like alcoholism and stuff like that. And also people not wanting to confront race, which is why I think a lot of this sort of content is going to be up there. People not wanting to confront race and people not liking gay and trans stuff. So, I will say that I don't think that it should be banned. However, I also would not recommend reading it. I would recommend checking out some Indigenous booktubers. I can link a few in the description. Go look at their recommendations because they've got a whole lot of books that are more interesting than Sherman Alexie's, that aren't written by predators. So, All American Boys I've not read, but that's Jason Reynolds, and I've been wanting to read that. So that's a possibility for potentially getting. I'm going to write this down because I will forget. I think I might have read America, or I read one that was similar. When I was going through the banned books list the first time that I read it, I was also aiming to read a banned book every so often. And I think this is the book that I read. If not, then there is another book with a very similar title. Yeah, it was a story about someone who went through the foster care system. I remember liking it. I also read it nearly a decade ago. I wonder if I can find the Tumblr that I started. I made 4 posts on that Tumblr. But this was one of the books that I read for that project, yes. America, a novel by E.R. Frank. This was banned, according to my Tumblr post. I could not find any official reasons, but if I were to guess, I would say that it was probably due to sexual content, drugs and alcohol, offensive language, and a religious viewpoint. I actually set this up in like a half-decent way, which is sort of surprising. Alright, that's good stuff. That's actually half-decent. I kind of wish I would have continued with this. Not enough that I'm going to actually put the link in the description, but I also reviewed The Color Purple and In a Tango Makes Three. Anyways, we're done looking at that. Moving back to the list. In a Tango Makes Three, which is an adorable little kid's book about 2 boy penguins that raise a baby chick. It's based off of a true story of some actual penguins at a zoo. It is literally the most innocuous book, and it managed to be in the top 10 for the past 2 decades. Someone please make it make sense. Annie on My Mind by Nancy Garden. That is already on my TBR. Guess I'll move it up since people are complaining about it. Okay. Autobiography of Malcolm X, which is also I already own. I guess I'll move it up. Although I am still finishing Asada before I read Malcolm X biography because I am finishing what I start. That's what I tell myself. Okay, Beloved by Toni Morrison, which I would like to get. I used to have a copy, but I don't know where it went. It just fucking got eaten. I don't know. I do know roughly what it's about. I know that it looks at race and it's got some graphic scenes. I only read like the first couple of chapters when I started to read it like forever ago. But with stuff like Toni Morrison, and really most things, as long as it has, I think that a lot of this could be really easily resolved if we had content warnings, which, you know, people talk about all the time, but it's literally what we do with movies. Why can't we just have it with books? Especially for things like libraries, whether it be, you know, just a public library or a school library. I'm not really sure if Toni Morrison should maybe be in like middle schools or elementary schools, but I would be perfectly fine with it being at a high school and a regular library, as long as you put some of the content warnings on the outside, then people can judge whether or not it's good for them or whether or not they want their children to read it. Other children shouldn't be not allowed to do something just because you don't want your kid to do it. That doesn't make any sense. Anyways, so, Beloved, I should seek out a copy of, which should not be hard to find. We have Beyond Magenta is one that I've seen before. One of the really neat things that I noticed when I was looking at the newest decades and kind of comparing it to what I knew about the oldest one, and even kind of looking at it some, is that there were way more trans books on the more recent one, which it's bad that these books are being banned, right? But if they're on these lists, that means that somebody's putting them in the libraries in the first place, and that means that someone is paying attention to them. And I know that I am not the only person that sees a banned book and says, well, why the hell is it banned? Now I've got to read it. So, it sucks that they're on there, but at the same time, it's kind of good because it means that it's getting recognition. It's bad that it's banned, good that it's being noticed. And I will look into Beyond Magenta. Yeah. Anyways, moving on. A lot of these I'm not sure about. Boy Meets Boy by David Levithan, I read, and I like a lot of David Levithan's books. Two Boys Kissing is excellent. I also really like his poetry. Boy Meets Boy, I was not a fan of. It is his first book, so, like, that's probably why it's not as good. I didn't think that it was realistic, and, like, part of the point was that this was all taking place in this magical world where homophobia doesn't exist. Which, I understand wanting to write that or wanting to read that and it being cathartic, but I just didn't think it was realistic enough. And, like, I didn't like it for that reason. That doesn't mean that somebody else can't like it for that reason. That's just why one of the reasons why I didn't like it. I also thought that the drag queen character was sort of questionable. And I wasn't sure if there was something, like, that it was attempting to be, like, trans representation, and it was super questionable. So that was a little bit, that made me uncomfortable. But I will say that in some of his newer stuff, David Levithan does have some good trans representation. And Boy Meets Boy, specifically, there's a trans man. And so that does do well. So, in general, I would recommend David Levithan, but I would not recommend specifically Boy Meets Boy. Drama I have heard of, but I have not read. It's not one that I would buy, but it would be one that I would read. It's like a middle grade. I think that it has LGBT rep, which is why it was on a lot of these lists. We have George by Alex Gino, which I would definitely recommend. It is a middle grade that is about, I forget if her name is Melissa or Marissa, but it's about this little trans girl who is not out as trans, but she kind of knows this about herself, and she really wants to play the part of Charlotte in her school's play. It's real cute. Go check it out. Let's see. Hold Me Closer by David Levithan. Isn't that the play that was based off of Will Grayson? Yeah, the Tiny Cooper story. Really? You know, I didn't finish that because I find Tiny Cooper's character to be overly campy. And, like, I started to read it, and it was a little too much. Not that that's, like, inherently bad. Maybe I just wasn't in the mood for it. I don't know. And it's been a while since I've tried to read it, so maybe I could try to read it again. I don't know. But I just don't know why this one specifically would be banned. I didn't even think that it got that popular. It is, he actually wrote the musical that Tiny Cooper was writing in Will Grayson. If any of you have read that. That is the book that, David Levithan and John Green wrote together. And I really liked Will Grayson. I Am Jazz, which I saw on the 2010 to 2019 list. And that's a good memoir. I forget if I gave it like 3.5 or so stars, maybe 4 stars. And it's about Jazz Jennings, who's, really popular. She's probably one of the most well-known trans people at this point. Not, like, the most, but she's got her own reality TV show. But she came out when she was a kid, and her parents made a kid's book. But she also made a memoir. And I'm actually not sure if this is the memoir or the kids' book, but regardless, nothing big or bad happens. The memoir talks about how she was mistreated by the school, I think, and definitely her soccer team. But it's good if you're looking to have a trans memoir. That's good, and I think that it's important to recognize the experience of trans kids, because it's a newer, being a trans kid isn't a newer thing, but trans kids actually being respected is a new thing, a fairly new thing. So I think seeing and understanding their experiences is really important, especially as there are going to be more of them now that there is more information accessible to people. I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. I have read some of Maya Angelou's poetry, and I have seen the documentary about her, but I have not read her memoir, which is what that is. Maniac McGee. I have not read it in a long ass time. I read it in like 4th grade, but I freaking loved that book. I actually still have a copy of it, so maybe I ought to reread it. The whole premise of Maniac McGee, the name Maniac has, that's ableist, right? But the whole premise of Maniac McGee is that there's this kid who's like an orphan. He basically spends all of his time just running. And a big piece of the book is about segregation and the racial divide. And Maniac McGee, I guess since he wasn't really raised by people, some of it's kind of, maybe not that realistic, but he didn't really see like the racial issue going on. So he would go from the white side of the city to the black side of the city, no problem. And he gets like caught up in the middle of some stuff, and it talks about racism. I remember liking it as a 4th grader. Not that that says necessarily a ton. I can't like vouch for it as an adult thinking about it. But there wasn't really anything bad in the book. I imagine that this was one of those where people are scared to talk about racism, so they want to ban all of the things. Who'd have thought? A lot of these I don't recognize. Pedagogy of the oppressed. I can never say that word correctly. Pedagogy. I actually was already planning on reading this for Fortnite Frights, which is Seiji over at Artisan Geeks October readathon. It's being held the second half of October, so I haven't made a readathon for it. I haven't made a TBR for it yet. But that is going on that list. I wrote it on the wrong side of the page. But that is definitely one that, it is tentatively on my TBR for Fortnite Frights. I was going to wait to solidify that TBR until I started in on some of my October reads, because I might have to, shift some stuff if I don't get everything done. There are other things that could go in its place, but I might just start reading it regardless, since it's on this list. Alex Sanchez has a lot of books, because there were 2 up top and 3 lower in the list. Maybe I gotta see what Alex Sanchez is up to, because I don't really know, but apparently, it's lots of Rainbow. Rainbow Boys, Rainbow High, Rainbow Road. Is it Mario Kart, or is it the gays? The gays playing Mario Kart. I would read that. Now, Persepolis. This was one that I was surprised to see on the 2010 to 2019 list. It's a really good book. I've talked about it before. It has, I think it mentions drugs and it mentions religion, but none of it's big or bad or like the point of it. It's excellent, and I think that it should be taught in high schools. It could even be taught in middle schools, honestly. I was hearing about the Middle East in middle school, and none of it was good, because all of it was just from politicians who just thought of it as like an oil mine, and people that they half-assedly pretended to care about so that they could wipe out the dictator to take their oil. That's really simplified. But the whole point is, there's no reason that this book is on the list. Go read Persepolis. Roll of Thunder, Hear Me Cry. I feel like I recognize that name. Did I read that book? I've read so many books for school that I've forgotten some of the books that I've read, a lot of the books that I've read, which is what happens when there are books that you don't care about in high school. But that's also what happens when you get an English degree and you read so many books that everything starts to melt. I guess I haven't. Maybe I've just seen it. I think it's a middle grade, so I don't think I have. Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison, Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. We got to read some Toni Morrison. I loved Sula. That was a really great read. So, just need more Toni Morrison in my life. The Color Purple is excellent. I would definitely say that there should be a content warning for sexual assault because there's definitely that in there. It's basically set up to where she is writing these letters to God, and it kind of goes through her life. She's abused by her dad, she's abused by her husband, but eventually meets this woman who kind of gets her out of the situation. It's good stuff. It's heavy stuff, but it's good stuff. Diary of a Girl by Anne Frank. Holocaust deniers and people who want their children to live in fucking Candyland. Alright. That's the people who banned that. The Golden Compass books were actually one of the few books that parts of my family, were unsure about. My dad and stepmom were super big into Harry Potter, but I remember them even talking about how, the Golden Compass was, it had some kind of atheist undertones to it. I don't know. I don't care enough to read the whole series. The House on Mango Street I actually do want to read. The Kite Runner I did read. I actually read that in my sophomore year of high school. It was on an option to read. We had to do individual book reports, so she gave us an option for several books, and that was one of them, and I really liked it. There was a rape scene in it, which is probably why people have challenged it. It was a male rape scene, which probably would have made more people mad. But I really liked the book. It has a really important message about the fact that, if you make a choice, and an action is a choice, when you do that, that can impact the lives of everyone around you drastically. I think that it was a really important read for me, and I would say that it shouldn't be banned. I don't think that it should be in a middle school or an elementary school, but I do see its value in a high school or a public library. Miseducation of Hammer and Post is also on my TBR, so I guess I'll move that up. Although, I have seen on Twitter a few different Indigenous people talk about some questionable things that go on in that book. So that's something that I'm going to be aware of as I'm reading that. That's not something that I see literally anyone else point out when I have heard people talk about Cameron Post. Perks of Being a Wallflower, I adored. And that was probably banned for language, drugs and alcohol, and sexual content, even though there's not that much sexual content. It also has kind of abuse, directly mentioned and also implied in different parts of the book. So this is one that probably shouldn't be in a middle school, probably shouldn't be in an elementary school, but a lot of the stuff that goes on in the book, people know about in high school or hear about in high school and should be talked about with high school students. I really like Perks, but it's kind of a YA classic, almost. Using the word classic kind of loosely. This Book is Gay by Juno Dawson. I read that and I did not like it. It was not the worst. It did have some useful information, but I read it around the same time I read The ABCs of LGBT by Ash Hardell, and I liked that one way better. That set my bar high, and then when I read
this book is gay, and it was like, they barely mentioned trans people, barely mentioned asexual people, but then in the glossary decided to talk about poppers. I was like, what the fuck? Why would you not talk about all of these people, but talk about, like, drugs? Or, I don't know that much about poppers, admittedly. But it just seemed weird to me. There may have been other editions since I've read it, because it's been a minute since I've read it. The version that I got actually had her dead name on it. So maybe there's been improvements. Maybe I went in with too high of an expectation. The way that it was written also rubbed me the wrong way, because I thought it was too casual and that it wouldn't appeal to the parents that should probably be reading it. So I probably judged it too harshly. So I should probably reread it. I read it in like 2016. So it's been a minute. Maybe I should give it another chance. If anyone has read it, comment down below and let me know if I'm being too picky. This One Summer by Mariko and Jillian Tamaki. I have not read This One Summer, but I have read a number of Mariko Tamaki books. Mariko and Jill Tamaki wrote Skim, which I did not like so much. It has a teacher-student relationship, and I'm not big on that. But a lot of it was still interesting. I think that there are certain issues that could have been handled differently. But I do see the value in it. Mariko Tamaki was one of the authors of Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, which is a book that I wish that I had had as a young adult. So I can't say anything for This One Summer because I haven't read it, but Mariko Tamaki has some other good or interesting books. Two Boys Kissing by David Levithan I've already mentioned and would recommend. And that is it. So, that's it. That is the ALA's Frequently Challenged Books with Diverse Content list. So, in theory, the books from this list that I own, that I would like to move up on my TBR, would definitely be Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which will probably, I don't want to promise anything, will probably find its way on my TBR for the end of October. Along that same vein, Malcolm X, the autobiography of Malcolm X, which that was already kind of high. It's probably going to stay in the same place realistically because I'm still finishing Asada first. Annie on My Mind and The Miseducation of Cameron Post, which I already have kind of a canon of lesbian or sapphic literature that I've been trying to get through. I say I've been trying to get through. I haven't started any of it, but I've got them. I've been getting them used. Yes, hello. Okay. Revolutionary Voices, which I've already shown. And yeah, that's it. In priority order, the books that I'm going to consider buying or checking out from the library sooner, kind of putting them more on my radar, include Toni Morrison's books, The House on Mango Street, All American Boys, Maya Angelou's memoir, and drama. I also need to look at Alex Sanchez's books, which, let's see, Alex Sanchez, what have you written? You wrote several things. So let's see, Rainbow Boys, Gay Issues, Coming of Age. Wow, that cover is something else. That is, wow. That is something. Look at those fucking frosted tips. Rainbow High. Oh, he got rid of the frosted tips. It's slowly evolving into emo hair. Relatable. Oh, Rainbow Road doesn't have just a page that I can look at. I'm on Wikipedia. So I might just read those for the hair. Let's be honest. It's also older gay lit, so like, why not, right? So, I'm not really sure if Alex Sanchez's books are good or not, but I might just end up reading at least the first of the Rainbow Boys trilogy just because of the frosted tips. If any of Alex Sanchez's books are actually good, please tell me about them in the comments below, or if you think they're terrible, also tell me. If you have any opinions on any of the books that I've thought about reading, or any of the books that I might have overlooked, definitely let me know. This video has gone on for long enough, so thank you all so much for watching. Go pick up a banned book, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Bye.